Stay current on the latest news and information from the Freedom Front. Pro Se recommends the following publications: The Americans Bulletin, The Uncensored Truth. Call 1-503-779-7709. Anti-Shyster, a critical examination of the American legal system. Call 1-800-477-5508. And The Spotlight, the weekly populist newspaper. Call 1-800-522-6292. The purpose of this program is to help the pro se better understand and use the law. It is not intended to offer legal advice. The program instructor, though well versed in the law as a pro se litigant, is not a licensed attorney. The general interpretation of the law on this tape may or may not be consistent with local applications of court rules, state statutes, county and municipal laws. It is imperative that the information on this tape be verified for accuracy in your local law library.
Hello, I'm Barry Smith. We're here at the City and County of Denver Law Library to tell you about something that's changed my life, and I'm sure it'll change yours too, and that is knowledge of how to use the law library. Don't be intimidated by the seemingly insurmountable mass of books that you see in the background behind me here today, because actually once you learn what you're doing, you'll find that all of these books make a tremendous amount of sense in the way that they've laid them out and the way that they've been organized, keeping in mind that some companies like West Publishing and Lawyers Cooperative have had literally hundreds of years to come up with the best possible way to organize legal information so that you and I can quickly gain access to it. In fact, I recently had a conversation with an attorney who told me that one of the most important things that he learned in law school was not necessarily the law, but rather how to look up the law in a law library like this. In fact, I would contend that knowledge that you can gain here in a place like this, properly applied, is power. You know, doing research in a law library is not really all that much different from doing research in any other library. If you've ever written a term paper in high school or college, or done research preparing to do some type of experiment or something like that, no matter what the setting, the research principles are a lot the same. You know, knowledge of the law can be very valuable in structuring your affairs, knowing your rights, and saving legal fees. In fact, knowledge of the law can give you a sense of power from the standpoint of having knowledge that makes it very difficult to be intimidated by a government official or even a private individual who may be trying to hold something over your head. The question may have occurred to some of you, where is a law library in my neck of the woods? If you're not an attorney, it's probably not likely that you'd know where they're at. In my particular instance, I live in a college town. The university in the town I live in does not have a law school, and yet the library is full of law books. In fact, I've almost been able to find every law book I've ever needed right there at the university library. Some city libraries have extensive law sections. I know there's one in Lakewood, Colorado, that is fairly comprehensive. Another place that you can go is to your county courthouse. Generally, they have a law library there that's open to the public, similar to the one like we're sitting in here. In addition to that, the federal courthouse here in Denver has a law library that's open to the public that you can go in and use. I've also recently had access to a private law library. You might be able to contact an attorney or perhaps executive suites that are designed for attorneys that will allow you access to their law books for a fee. You know, law books can be very expensive. I recently got a price on a set of United States Code annotated $1,700 for the set of books. Of course, it's a pretty large set of books, but nevertheless. But you know, that doesn't necessarily mean that the study of law needs to be expensive. There are a lot of inexpensive places that you can gain access to law books besides just a law library like this one. For example, you could go to your local public library. You could get into the Carl system on their computers there, the database, and you can go into there and you can tell it, look, I'd like to know about trial tactics. And you will find that they have law books on their shelves that you could check out right there at the library, take home and read it for a couple weeks for free. If they don't have law books at your library, just your public library, then what you could do is you could do an interlibrary loan. You go in the Carl system, you could get into the database for your local law school library, check books out right out of the law library. If you live in a city that has a public or a state-sponsored law school, like here, Colorado University is one of those. You can walk right in there and get yourself a library card at that library and check yourself out law books for no cost. I don't even think for the card itself. Another way to get inexpensive law books is keep your eyes open at garage sales and at flea markets. I recently had a friend pick me up a book on trial tactics that is still a valuable book. It was fairly old, but it's still valuable, for 50 cents. I got a book on rules of evidence for $2 at the flea market. And by way of that, I've started to collect, you know, a fairly comprehensive set of books just for my own use. It's handy to have those because when you get involved in some type of litigation or wanting to look up something on procedure or a rule of evidence or something like that, it's nice just to be able to just pull it off the shelf for yourself. Another inexpensive way of acquiring law books is to peruse through the used bookstores. There are several on Broadway here in Denver that have entire sections of used books. I have several friends who have picked up entire law libraries from auction houses for as little as $150. I mean, I have one friend who filled a small room, wall-to-wall books, for $150. Every kind of law book that a couple of deceased or a deceased lawyer had for sale at his estate auction. I have other friends that have picked their law books up by going to library sales, and just happened that these libraries were for some reason selling off their law books, and they picked them up very cheap. Some books that you might want to consider purchasing or want to have in your own collection would include, for sure, a legal dictionary. You could probably pick that up from your local bookstore for as little as $20. You can get a nice hardbound one for $35. And then you could look up legal terms, you know, whatever you hit on one that you don't quite understand, which when you're first starting out, that happens frequently. Another one that you set of books that you want to have is your court rules. Here in Colorado, Bradford Publishing publishes their court rules hardbound and annotated. For those of you that don't know, an annotation is a little paragraph that describes what a court ruling was. And so what they've done for you is they've arranged all the court rulings by the rule. So whenever a court rules on what a rule means, they'll put the little annotations underneath it. So if you want to know about a rule, you can look it up. Here in Colorado, you can go down to Bradford Publishing and pick up the court rules, which they're in 7A and 7B of Colorado Revised Statutes. You can get them for about $26. Then after that, each year you can purchase a pocket part for each volume for about $2 a piece and have yourself a continuously updated set of court rules, which is essential. Another thing that you might want is what's known as horn books. Horn books are the books that are used by law students as textbooks, where what's happened is the publishers have gone in and collected up all the cases that have to do with particular topics and arranged them into one hardbound book. If you bought it new, it would probably cost $35 to $40 to get a brand new horn book. And they're titled things like How to Find the Law, or Tort Litigation, or Tax Law, or something like that. In other words, it's by topic. Another type of book is called Restatement of the Law. And these books now they're older books, but they're principles of law that still apply, and they're books that you can purchase inexpensively. Another form is Nutshell. There's a publisher that puts out the nutshells, and they'll be something like, for example, Injunctions in a Nutshell. They'll use a